Hey guys, yeah, I know yesterday was the official anniversary, 30th anniversary of Sonic SatAM, Sonic the Hedgehog. But I was tired from work, and you can tell I'm still tired from today as well. Which is why I didn't do this sooner, because all I did was go onto my bed here, that you can see in the background, and basically I just laid down. I was like, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Well, I'm not doing anything for a while because I was just done. I was just tired. Uh, but yeah, I wanted to just get this opportunity, or I just wanted to use this opportunity, I should say, to come on here and talk about Sonic SatAM. And of course, you guys know that have followed me since my beginnings here on YouTube, even back to my first channel in 2006, and up to this one, including my BW Roses Discussions YouTube channel and Spotify podcast, if you will, audio video podcast on places like Spotify, as well as my BW Roses 98 channel and all that. You guys know that I'm a huge fan. It's obvious. I mean, I've gone on record and have said that, and has shown basically, that I bought not one but two copies of the original Shout Factory Sonic SatAM Complete Series set. One of them is still, as you have all seen, wrapped up in its original plastic casing, and it's only going to be used if necessary, or it's going to be put on display. It is basically a collector's item. It's preserved as it originally was released, and now we're on the verge, if not already, coming close to it, with End Circle releasing the series once again, but this time instead of on 4, you're gonna have 2, just 2 discs. But we'll see. Maybe, like I said, like I've mentioned before when I talked about it, maybe a higher quality disc, a dual layer DVD disc that will allow for that kind of for that kind of transfer and everything, and still make stuff look good. But outside of that, like I said, I've been a fan for a long time. I've been a fan for a long time, and as I've mentioned on many occasions, when it comes to talking about Sonic SatAM, my history with it, that most of what I say is true. Like when I first started watching the series, me and my family were living in Oskaloosa, Kansas in 1993. Long story short, originally we were supposed to be living in Topeka, Kansas, but the house my dad had bought, or was going to get for us, basically still had some issues that need to be worked out. Certain things need to be fixed. And, the outside and the inside of the house was decent and everything, especially like with the rooms. I mean, my second older sister was basically kind of laughing, kind of like, I guess you could say laughing in a way like, ooh, I get this more, I get this, more, I get this before Brian and our older sister would, because basically her room had cable, or was pretty much fit for cable. But what happened is that the house, it had a feel to it, like it was, like basically, long story short, there was a hallway, dark and everything, and then the area where obviously it had been the dining room and all that had basically, I think my mom once put it as a funeral parlor like setting. She just didn't feel good about it. Even though she would probably bless the house and everything like she does all the new houses that my family's, my sisters, my nephews, my nieces, and all of them move into. She'll bless all the houses and everything. Because that's what my late grandma would do as well. But anyway, she just didn't have a good feeling about it, and also the fact that my dad, he paid the contractors, or who he thought were good contractors, honest contractors, but they weren't. They ended up ripping him off, and they stopped working as soon as he paid them. What he should have done was basically wait till they were done before he paid them. That was pretty much it. That's pretty much what happened. So that led us to basically have to move back to the house that we were originally going to move into a year prior, in Oskaloosa, Kansas. This house at that time was over 100 years old, and ever since then has been remodeled and pretty much refurbished and everything to look pretty much up to date. Like it's a house, like it's a classic house. It's a house of the past, but it's more suited for living in than it ever has been. We'll put it that way. But anyway, to get back on topic, it was during that second stint in Oskaloosa, Kansas, that I heard about Sonic SatAM coming out. I mean, I had read the comics, believe it or not. I was reading the comics at that time and everything. I was reading the comics, and I think I saw an advertisement in there or something. I read the comics, early that year before moving out. So I kind of had an idea, basically. I had an idea. Now I know I've mentioned, now I know you're probably thinking, well, Brian, haven't you mentioned that you didn't read the comics, until after? I've thought about it, and yeah, that is true. I didn't really mostly get into the comics till after the show, but I do remember looking at them at times and reading them and seeing these characters and thinking, well, who's this, who's that? And then it was the show itself that kind of basically introduced me to them. And I remember how the show was. The show was, not how the show. Well, I'll get into that in a moment. As you can tell, I'm still tired and everything. I just woke up from like a little brief nap. But getting back on topic here. Basically, I remember, it was September. It was a month before. This is the truth. This was a month before me and my family, mostly because of my mom, moved back to California to live with my grandparents. But it was a month before. And I remember ABC had its, yearly Saturday morning preview on TGIF, just like all the channels did at that time. CBS, Fox, I think it was just getting into it, and I think even NBC for one last time or something like that. But the one we would watch the most, and anybody would watch the most, was ABC. So ABC had theirs, and I think it was the one hosted by Hanging with Mr. Cooper cast. And I remember they highlighted, the big highlight was Sonic SatAM. And they showed, I think, what was it, about 6 minutes of the first episode. And they said, hey, if you want to watch the rest, you got to watch tomorrow morning or the next day. And that's what I did. But here's what was interesting. We were watching it on two different televisions. I was watching it upstairs on television, black and white. Yes, I had a black and white because that's all I could have up there, and that's all we had as a spare TV, and the colors was downstairs. And I remember watching it and everything, and even asking my family if they saw it and what they thought, and they're like, yeah, we saw it and everything, and they even made fun of Sonic's voice until I think they found out who was voicing him, and it's like, oh well, that makes sense. Anyway, I do remember watching that first episode fully the following day, and the episode that they previewed and showed fully the following day was Supersonic. That was the first episode. Now I know to some they might say, well, wasn't Heads or Tails the pilot? Heads or Tails was the pilot, but what was interesting is, you could go and ask anybody out there, and they'll pretty much tell you the same thing. Heads or Tails may have been the pilot, but it was the last episode shown. It was. And I remember watching it, when we went back to live with my grandparents, we were all sharing one room, even though my sister had, just had her daughter and, not just had, but even though my oldest sister had her daughter with her, who was 1 year old at that time, even though she was 1 year old, basically we all shared the same room. And I think she did share it with us as well, unless they did give her the spare room. I can't really remember. I don't know if they did or not. I can't remember. But I know that me and my mom, my second older sister, and on occasion, and most of the time, my older sister were all in one room. And the TV was on this end. It was like, here we were in the middle, the bed was in the middle, here I was on this end, and I think I was sleeping on a sleeping bag or something like that, or something, I can't remember. But, and then here was the TV on the other end. So, I got to watch Sonic SatAM as best I could at times. And I primarily remember watching, because I was reading the comics officially. I was really getting into the comics officially at that time. I remember watching the final episode of season 1, and I saw how it began, and I saw how the SWATbots looked. You know, I saw how the animation style was just a little bit more different, and then of course I saw how Sally looked, Bunny looked, Antoine looked, and I'm thinking, this is the comic book come to animation life. What's going on here? And I didn't know at the time until later on, you know, like a lot of people pretty much figured out, that was the pilot. That was initially the pilot that would air first. It was supposed to air first and not last. But, yeah, I ended up watching it and everything. And it wouldn't be until, believe it or not, it wouldn't be until I was sent back out to live with my dad in Kansas, in Oskaloosa, Kansas, due to personal reasons, if you will, out here in California. It wasn't until I was sent, you know, out there to live with my dad in Oskaloosa, Kansas, who had gotten cable finally. He got cable installed and all that, that I was finally able to catch up on all the episodes, you know, that I tried to watch, and I would watch on occasions, but not successfully. So I was able to catch up on all the episodes, even record some of the episodes on Variety VHSs, which I don't have anymore, along with other Saturday morning cartoons. And then I took a page out of my cousin's playbook, who's the same age as my second older sister, because what he would do is he would always record, he would use, you know, separate VHS tapes for one series. And if that series went on for seasons, it would be for that one series and for that season. And then he would just continue on and on. So I took a page out of this playbook and said, okay, I'm going to dedicate one VHS to season 2. And even though I missed out on Game Guy, because I think I subbed in, but I did watch the rest of it, I recorded a majority of season 2. I recorded Sonic Conversion. I recorded No Brainer. Both blasted past 1 and 2. I recorded, believe it or not, the Antoine short. You know, Ghost Busted and Fed Up with Antoine. I think I recorded that. And then I recorded The Void. I recorded Dulcie after that, I should say, and I recorded The Void. Those are the ones I recorded. And I was on the verge of getting ready to record the final 4 episodes when the VCR that my dad and I got from a pawn shop finally conked out. Yeah, it conked out. It's like it could play movies, but it conked out. And we didn't get another one after that, unfortunately. You know, hey, it was my dad's money. He had the decision. Not, you know, he had the final say, not me. So, you know, so I couldn't finish recording them or anything. So it's the recording, basically the recording laser, I guess you'd call it, burnt out or something. But I did watch the final episodes, you know, despite that, I did. And I enjoyed them. I really did. And I do remember watching them in replay. And I do remember watching up till about February 1995, where after they showed Spy Hog, and then I think following week they did show Doomsday, that was it. Sonic SatAM was taken off. There was no season 1 replay. There was no season 2. It was just gone. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're holding off until the following season, right? That didn't happen. Excuse me. The final season didn't happen. And unfortunately, I had to wait a while before I'd actually get anything concrete, if you will. I had to wait later on until I'd finally get anything concrete, you know, Sonic-wise. And that wouldn't be until 1996. Me and my dad decided we were going to go out for Christmas, to be with our family. And my family was living in Livermore at the time. Long story short, I was sleeping in the living room because, small townhouse, not much place you could sleep in. So I slept in the living room. And I remember watching one day, on USA, Sonic. I saw Sonic on there. And little did I know that this was basically part of a new deal that USA and Deke Entertainment had come up with to air Sonic and other shows, new and old, that have been, basically refused by other networks or basically were taken off the air, but still there was some kind of, viewability to them. Anyway, basically I remember watching, I was thinking, oh, it's Sonic and it's Christmas. And I remember seeing Sally in there. And I saw Pink Sally. And I couldn't remember specifically whether or not, at the time, am I seeing classic Pink Sally or what's going on here? So I remember watching it later on, many years later, when it got replayed, I think in syndication or something. And I saw her and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Sally, SatAM designed Sally that we know of, minus the vest. But she has a pink fur and red hair coloring. So I thought that was pretty cool. To see and everything. But anyway, after that, it wouldn't be until like a year or two later, and I've mentioned this before as well, to where I would go and be part of this vocational summer program for 2 weeks or so, kind of give me an idea of what it would be like to live on my own or live in a dormitorium, if I went to school, after high school, like go to Washburn University or Highland Community College or something. And I remember I was watching television, just flipping the channels, and I saw the advertisement for USA's Cartoon Action Extreme Team, or something like that. I think that's what they call Action Extreme Team or Extreme Action Team or whatever it was. And I remember after they did the bumper, all of a sudden, I think it was like 7 o'clock came around, 6:30. No, it was 6:30 in the morning came around. And all of a sudden I hear the blue streak speeds by and I see the intro and I'm thinking, this is SatAM. And that's when I found out that, again, going back to what I said earlier, USA had made a deal with Deke Entertainment to air Sonic and some other stuff that, they had a hand in on the new Action Extreme Team animation block, which was basically taking the place of USA's classic Cartoon Express block. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. It's pretty cool and everything. And it ran as a part of that for, I think, a couple of years. The only downside from it, and I didn't notice this at first, but then when I would watch some of the episodes, people did record off of USA doing SatAM's run on it. One of the things I did notice when I would watch those rips, if you will, from the original recordings people would do of the USA, airing of the show, and a lot of people brought this up, was the fact that the episodes got butchered. They got butchered massively due to time restraints. And you can definitely see that. Like if you watch Doomsday, if you watch the Doomsday Project, the season 2 finale, as it was originally first aired, you'd be like, okay, there's nothing missing. It's fully complete, right? You get everything. You get every scene, every moment, and all that. You watch that, but if you watch that very same episode, but if you would have, I should say, watched that very same episode when it was aired on USA, then you would definitely see some things were cut out, like what's going on here? Why is it skipping to this? Why is it skipping to that? And that's what made people unhappy with USA having Sonic SatAM on its block. Like, yeah, it was great. The show was getting another chance at life, but all of a sudden, now it's being butchered to death because of what? Time restraints? It really didn't sit well with people. Anyway, years later, of course, Lionsgate, through with the help of Trimark Home Video, would release a couple of episodes of season 1 on DVD. including, initially it was like, I think, what, Supersonic, Ultrasonic, Sonic Racer, and Hooked on Sonics. But they also had a bonus one, which was Sonic and the Secret Scrolls, if you would have finished a trivia game. So that was basically like 5 episodes. And I bought it the moment it came out. I bought it the moment it came out. And I think I bought copies for others, that helped me out a little bit, like, with, requests, commissions, or something. And no sooner, I'll be honest with you, no sooner did that come out, then all of a sudden, I think about a couple months later, it was taken off the shelves. And that was because basically Lion Gates and Trimark did not have Benio Vista's permission. Benio Vista, of course, Disney, that is, which is a division of Disney, Benio Vista Home Entertainment, a division of Disney. They did not have Disney's consent, because Disney at the time had bought and owned Deke Entertainment before it got bought out by other people, years later. But they owned it. And Lion Gates did not have any permission, any rights to basically put these, episodes together. They didn't have any rights, to do that. To profit off of with the DVD. So that DVD called Supersonic was the only physical media we had of the of the original show, mostly season 1 for the time being. Now for me, afterwards I decided, okay, I got to get the rest of season. I got to get Sonic on VHS somehow, right? I got to get on VHS, or I got to have something Sonic wise. So I went online, went to this Canadian store, can't think of the name right now, and I was able to get all 3 volumes of Sonic SatAM on VHS. When they were released and this is when they were released originally by Deke Toontime Video under the Benio Vista Home Video license, or distributing license. They were released by Deke Toontime Video, again, which was a subsidiary of Benio Vista's Home Video distributing license. So I bought those, and what's crazy is I even rented them one time. I think I even rented one from Blockbuster when I was living on my own, and I tried to, it was before I lived on my own, to try to record it onto VHS, and that's when I first found out about copy protection. It's like, yeah, Disney, no matter what properties they own, they ain't taking no chances. Excuse me. Anyway, I bought those, and then I reached out to a fellow fan called Rafaela XD, because I had found out that she had basically ripped all the episodes from the pop. I think it was either the pop or the original ABC version, the original ABC versions, if you will. But she had ripped all the episodes and put them onto VCD, and she was selling them for profit. And this was before, I think, a year or two before the complete series was released by Shout Factory. And I said, okay, I want them. I want to have copies of them, and I bought copies from her, and that's how I was always able to make some of my Sonic SatAM fan vids the way I have. But then of course, a couple years later, the DVD, the complete series DVD came out, and I was cool with that as well. No matter how you look at it. But anyway, I was able to do that, and then even before then, Jay Foxfire, and I think this was right after I moved, or a year or two after I moved. Jay Foxfire had done me a favor. She did something for me. I did something for her, or something. I can't remember what it was. But Jay Foxfire did me a favor, and because I was asking around, I was thinking, okay, I looked at the VHS the original VHS recordings that I had, and I'm thinking, man, I just need to get those final 4 episodes. So I asked around, and finally I think somebody led me to Jay Foxfire and said that she may have them or something, and I talked, and we went back and forth, and she said, oh yeah, I can send you copies of those. So she sent me a VHS copy of I think it was Jay Foxfire, correct me if I'm wrong, but if she's watching, correct me if I'm wrong, but she sent me an original VHS well, not original, but she sent me a copy of all the episodes on another VHS so I can have them. So I finally, even though they were separate, had both VHSs, which I don't have anymore, unfortunately. But again, in 2007, we won't have to worry about that because I, along with everybody, got the complete series on DVD. And now you might ask, well, how did I do that? Well, at the time, I was working for the Walmart in Lawrence, Kansas as an unloader. And that Walmart in Lawrence, Kansas was 24/7. So one of the most popular times of the week was midnight releases. And I already knew, and I think I showed it before. I think I've shown it before. I already knew that we were getting Sonic SatAM because as an unloader, you can kind of open the boxes sometimes to see, okay, is it the right item and all that before sealing it back up and putting it in its area. And I was able to look into the box, or after it was put into its area, I was able, and it was already open. Okay, let me kind of rephrase that. I was able to see what was in the box after we placed it in its area, and somebody had already opened it, and I saw that we had Sonic SatAM. So I told myself, okay, before I get off work, or before I go home, after I get off work, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait for the midnight hour. And I did. That's how I originally got my Transformers 20th Anniversary DVD, or Transformers the Movie 20th Anniversary DVD back then, along with the lithograph back in 2006. That's how I was able to get it. And that's how I was able to get Sonic SatAM through midnight release. And I didn't just get one, but I got two. And then I got several other copies for, I think, J Foxfire, Raphael XD, some family members like my nephew and my cousins. You know, I was able to get copies for them as well. But for me, I was able to get not one, but two of them. You know, and again, one of them is unopened, still sealed up, and I'm not going to do anything with it unless it's really necessary. But yeah, that was pretty cool to get my hands on at that time. It was also during this time that I discovered that the fan base, you know, was much larger than what it was, and obviously that there were people within that had worked on the show themselves, like a Ben Hurst, that wanted to try to get the show going again. And you know, just to know, and I think I was even able to communicate with Ben Hurst at one time too. You know, as part of a Q&A or something, and I even talked with Brian Ward through email, as well, when he was doing the whole thing about the fans contributing to the DVD artwork for the series. But yeah, you know, it was during this time, in the 2000s, into 2010s, but mostly 2000s, that I noticed that the fan base was huge. I was thinking, man, the fans never really let this die. And I think it was mainly because of the comic being run by Archie, and I think it was at the time as well that because the comic basically in the mid to late 90s was really taking on that more serious tone and more of a SatAM-like tone, especially if you hear from people like Ken Penders, who you like the guy or you don't, who worked on the book at the time. It was as well as other people who worked on the book with him, artistically and story-wise. It was taking on more of a SatAM tone, and I think that's what led to fans wanting to see the series get really revived more so than it ever has. Because hey, if you can have these SatAM-like stories in comic book form, why not try to put it back on visual television form? You know what I'm saying? So, again, it was during this time that I found out that the fan base was bigger than I've ever thought it could be. I mean, probably one of the biggest fan bases out there even to this day. And, you know, and I was there. I was there reading all these informations and articles of Ben trying to get, you know, the third season going and looking like at times he was on the verge of doing it, and then all of a sudden there would be a roadblock, or basically a like ain't gonna happen kind of deal, or somebody basically, you know, lying to Sega themselves because they wanted to do their own story, and you know they didn't want Ben to beat them to the punch. You know, it was, you know, I was there reading all that and thinking, man, you know, man, I can't, because there were times that I would read the stories. I'm thinking, oh, good, we're close to getting it, and then all of a sudden, wouldn't happen. So, yeah, again, just to know how big that was, and the fact that it was Fans United for SatAM (FUS) that helped, and Allison there that helped contribute to the SatAM Complete series being released on DVD. It just shows you the power of any fan base, that if they want something, if they want something to be given a second chance. I don't know if it's sorry about that, but like I said, it just shows you the power of a fan base that, they're able to, make something like that happen. And now you're seeing it even more so with Team Season, trying their damnedest to get the third season out and running, at least the pilot episode, to try to get it potentially sold to a higher network or higher streaming service or platform like Netflix or Max or maybe even Disney, who knows, or heck, maybe they'll just put it on YouTube. I mean, you look at Hell of a Boss by Vivipop, and Has Been Hotel has been picked up by A24, and it's going to probably be put on a streaming network that they're connected with. But Hell of a Boss, just like Has Been at one point, is mostly fan funded. And because it's fan funded, you get the new episodes, whenever you could. Mainly, it's seemingly and mainly on a monthly basis. So that might be the direction Team Season goes, where they just, if they can't get a streaming platform to do it, they'll just say, hey, we're just going to keep getting help from the fans and financially to just produce and release all the episodes on YouTube like Hell of a Boss. And that might be the direction to go. Just my opinion. But yeah, it just shows you the power of the this fan base, like any fan base, that if you want something back or you want something to have a second chance, you got to let it be known. You got to show it. You got to be like, hey, we want this, and we know we're not the only ones. We know that people that probably worked on the show want this to be given another opportunity or something to that matter. I mean, Archie Sonic's pretty much being continued through Archie Sonic Online, and they're doing it through various different ways. Like they're dedicating a whole Knuckles webcomic to endangered species and how, based on ideas they've heard where it could have gone. They're doing the same with the main comic. They're doing something with, something with Bunny Rabbit's story, which could have been explored originally but wasn't. So it's so the fans are not giving up. The fans are still. But like I said, guys, getting back to what I was saying, it just is an example of the power of any kind of fan base out there that wants something back, given a second opportunity, and even along with those that worked on said property, feeling the same way, because there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential still left to be realized, in my opinion. And again, all the examples I gave you of how it's done here with Sonic SatAM is just amazing. It really is. I mean, heck, let's be honest. You have fans out there, including myself on occasions, but fans out there that will write, draw, and animate, let's say, more adult, risque, XXX Sonic-related material based in the SatAM universe, or a hybrid of the SatAM Archie universe, or basically, based in a hybrid, amalgamation like universe of all the universes. Where characters are literally getting it on with each other, and more so that being of Tails, getting it on with a lot of the women, if you know what I mean. But but anyway, again, it just shows you the dedication that fans have that want to see these characters continue existing, even if it's a little bit more risque than they would normally plan. But yeah, the fan base is, but the fan base for this is just, I think, one of the strongest I've ever seen and been part of. You know, they want to see this get a second chance, and they're going through various avenues to make it happen. You know, they are. I mean, yesterday you look down here at the bottom. SatAM historian, or groovy old Jake, if you will, on YouTube. Um, he did his original plan for the 30th anniversary was to release a full 2-hour video documentary called Ben's Vision, kind of a visual representation of what he was also going to be talking about in the book. Because yes, this shows you how much the fan base, is connected, because you have people like myself and others that have helped contribute to said book, where it's basically the complete history and guide to Sonic SatAM, and he wants to get this book out, from what I can tell, at least by next year, or at least by the beginning of 2025. That's what I'm assuming. He wants to get this book out. But until then, he wants to give us more of an idea, more of a visual representation, of what's to come. And he's done that with various little snippets, here and there, talking about ideas, for potential spin-offs, that they would have done, based around Sonic, like Sonic Sisters and stuff like that. And, it's just like, it's just like, wow, you see this and you see how dedicated the fan base is. And the fan base, and that dedication shows with this. Now, originally, like I said, this was supposed to be 2 hours, but due to behind-the-scenes technical difficulties and probably some personal life issues, he's had to hold back. So what he did instead is he gave us the first 6 parts of this, what he calls Ben's Vision, to kind of give us an idea, kind of whet our appetite for what's to come. And then at the end of it, he showed us an idea, or gave us pretty much a sneak peek and glimpse as to what the rest of the documentary, is going to be like. So yeah, and he's got people contributing to that as well. He's got people contributing to that with storyboards, based on some of the concepts Ben Hurst wanted to bring to the table, including talking about Nicole's origins, like how she came to be, that in the SatAM universe, and other stuff as well. But it's not just them either. It's not just them either. You have a whole fan base of collaborated artists out there that for over the past year or two were working together to bring what they called Sonic the Hedgehog Rejuiced, or Sonic SatAM Rejuiced. And what that was is that they decided to pick one episode from the entire show, which was Sonic Racer, to do their reanimated, basically give their shot at doing a reanimated, take on it. Like we see all these reanimations, short or full length or whatever, of certain iconic shows, characters, and all that. And you see all these different animation styles blended together. Here, they decided they're going to take, like I said, the episode Sonic Racer from Season 1 and go in that direction, because I guess that presented more of a visual, idea, more of a visual challenge for them to, replicate and change into their own style. And I'll say this right now, if you've not seen it, you have to see it. It's just so unique to see all the different animations and the little Easter eggs they put in said animations and stuff. It's really cool. It's really just really way past cool, as Sonic would say. When it comes to Rejuiced. But the same could be said, of course, like I said, for this down here as well. And again, going back to Team Season, you see what they're doing, and the fact that they have gone as far as to become a member of a Canadian board of society that will allow them to continue working on the project, I should say, with the fan support financially, as well as some other financial support as well, from what I'm understanding. It's just a blessing in disguise. It's just a huge blessing in disguise. and that's the truth. That's the truth. So yeah, but now, like I said, looking back on it, there's no doubt that this show made a huge impact on everybody. It was just unfortunately put into a situation to where, depending on where you lived, it got tossed around because ABC would have college football or the wild card games for the NFL or whatever. It would just get tossed around, and then of course when it finally did get a good proper, time slot to be in, it got put up against the Power Rangers. So that didn't really help it out, any much. It didn't help it out, greatly. Put it that way. And drink some Pepsi there. But but here's the thing too, and it'll be the last thing I say before I close this down because my mom's home now, so I don't want to be interrupted. I will say this. I've always had this belief, and I mentioned this in a video. I've always had this belief. Now, I don't know if Jake, if you will, SatAM historian, will bring this up in the video documentary next week when he presents the full uncut 2-hour presentation, or if he even mentioned in the book. But I've always had this feeling that the show was being shopped around to be continued on another network after ABC took it off. Because Ben Hur said he heard the saying, he just never heard anybody say it, of, when the new folks, mainly Disney people, or Disney related people took over, that one of the things they said was percolate down, new broom sweep clean. So even though he didn't hear somebody say it, he heard it being talked about or mentioned. And to me, I think what this also meant was Dick Entertainment was now going to be looking for new homes for some of these shows. It wasn't just Dick Entertainment either; it was others. They were going through something similar. So they were looking for new homes, and I think honestly, this is just again my honest opinion. I think Dick Entertainment and even Sega to an extent were trying to shop SatAM, in my opinion. I have no proof of this, but in my opinion, I think they were trying to shop Sonic SatAM over to other networks, even going as far as to probably have it be put on Fox, right? Back to back with Power Rangers, or back to back with X-Men or whatever, or try to shop it to. I think the WB was starting out at that time, wasn't it? Kids WB was starting out. I'm not really sure. Try to shop it out to them, or even shop it out to Cartoon Network. It was just, I think I was only 3 years into existence, so that could have been something. Nickelodeon, I think, was even considered to be shopped around as well. Not just for, for the third season to continue, but for maybe a feature film and being the distributor or the backer behind it. But I've always had this belief that I think one of the top areas one of the top networks I think they wanted to get the show on was CBS. I think, honestly, in my opinion, they probably shopped it around. I think, my honest opinion, I think CBS was the first one, and they saw a golden opportunity in front of them. CBS, in '94, when the second season had come out on ABC, had launched this new block, consisting of action-related shows that were a little bit more darker in tone than what you were used to. They still had some comedic flair here and there, but it was mostly action, adventure, and kind of dark in its storyline and tone, like I said, with a little bit, like I said, humorous comedicness, sprinkled in. Those shows, of course, were the new was the eighth season. The eighth season of I think it was the eighth season, I believe. Eighth season. Yeah, it was the eighth season of TMNT, which would be known as the Red Sky seasons for that season, season 9 and season 10, be known as the Red Sky seasons. Um, it had definitely a darker tone to it, more mature tone to it. Jim Lee's Wildcats and Skeleton Warriors, and you can definitely tell there were dark tones in there as well. Like I said, with a little bit of comedicness sprinkled in. So, in my opinion, I think they saw that, hey, this is a going. In my opinion, I think they went to CBS first after pretty much they found out, hey, the show's going to be canceled, along with some other properties. They probably went to CBS first and said, hey, we want to, and they probably brought up the action. In my opinion, this is what I think what happened. This is what I think what happened. They started shopping around. They had a list of potential people to sell the show to get it aired, maybe get the third season aired, and CBS was at the top of the list. And they probably looked at the strengths and weaknesses of it, of that potential reality happening. And one of the strengths they saw was, hey, it's got this new block called the Action Zone. That'd be perfect. That'd be perfect for Sonic SatAM. Fits right in. I mean, can you imagine that Action Zone thing, that bumper before the show starts saying, entering the Action Zone, scanning for Sonic the Hedgehog, locked, access now. I mean, it just has a ring to it, in my opinion. And I think, honestly, CBS was the top priority, with the Action Zone being, a potential selling block for them to get the show on the network for Saturday mornings. But again, I have no proof of that. I don't think anybody else has any proof of that. But it's just always been a strong feeling that I've had for a long time that I think CBS would have been the new home for the show. Had things worked out in its favor, and I think the Action Zone block was a perfect fit. Would have been a perfect fit for Sonic SatAM, no doubt. And then of course you had Fox, who I think probably considered it, but probably didn't want to invest too much into it, and maybe didn't want to take away from Power Rangers or X-Men because maybe they saw, hey, this show could steal away the vibes. And Kids WB, which was just starting out, probably wanted to focus more on the WB properties than anything else. So, and Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, they pretty much were filled up, I guess, to the brim with stuff that they already had. So, unfortunately, it was straight to USA Network, and the butchering that occurred there in the eyes of many fans. But yeah, in closing, I've always had this feeling CBS would have been the new home for Sonic SatAM had things gone in the right direction. Again, I have no proof of it. But I just always had this feeling. And especially, again, when you look at the fact that they had the Action Zone, to me, that would have been the perfect selling point. And it probably was a good selling pitch that they may have tried to give or considered giving to get the show on there. But again, that's just my opinion. I have no proof of that. But you never know. You never know. Maybe we'll find out more in the full documentary or in the book when it comes out, or maybe somebody before that. Maybe someone before the book comes out and says, hey, yeah, this did happen, and here's evidence of it. But we'll have to see. We'll have to just wait and see. But I've always had that belief, in my opinion, as a fan, that was the direction they were going to go in. I really do. Again, I just can't shake that, But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and, contribute, my thoughts as a fan to, the 30th anniversary of Sonic SatAM. I'm happy that the fan base and the love for the show and the characters is still going strong even to this day. And I'm looking forward to the full 2-hour documentary, Ben's Vision, next week. I like the first half, the first 6 parts. I can't wait for the next ones. I can't wait for that. Yeah, I highly recommend checking out Rejuiced. I think you'll really enjoy that. And support Team Season. Help them financially get this thing going off the ground a lot faster than what it is. And Really, that's all I can say. That's all I can really say, guys. But thank you all for watching and listening. And you will get a version of this at BW Roses Discussions podcast. All your favorite audio and video podcast locations except for Pandora, but more specifically, check it out on Spotify. You'll definitely be helping me out there if you do. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to talk about that, bring that all up, kind of like I said, re-talk about my history and the fan, how I came to watch the show and get to know the characters, as well as give my thoughts on things that I've always had a feeling about, but never could really prove whether or not they're real. And maybe we will get that proof down the line. Who knows? But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. And I'd just love to hear from each and every one of you. Hey, did you always have the feeling that CBS might have been the new home for Sonic SatAM? Let me know. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.